Hello and welcome to the Temple Family Council webinar, Navigating Temple Together, a Q&A for families with peers, the Temple Off-Campus Housing Office, University Housing and Residence Life, and the Public Safety Department. As you're entering into our Zoom, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, where you're from, and how your students' experience has been in Temple so far. We'd love to get to know who's joining us today. So please feel free to use that chat feature, and we're going to give everyone just a moment to join us and make sure that you can go ahead and just let us know who you are, and as you're joining us, let us know where you're from as well. We'll start in just a moment officially. Great. We have some folks from North Jersey joining us, some Stroudsburg folks joining us, someone just outside of Philly, so they're close to campus here. Great. Thank you so much for all of your introductions here. Keep them coming. Love to see who's joining us today. Baltimore. Wow, Denver, Colorado, you're the furthest so far that I see. Baltimore. Oh, Florida. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting it in the chat. Some folks from Delaware joining us, DC, a lot of Philly folks and surrounding areas, a lot from the tri-state areas, we'd like to call it. Wow, Kentucky, welcome. North Carolina, love it. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for joining us. Hello and welcome to the Temple Family Council webinar, Navigating Temple Together, a Q&A for families with peers and the Temple Off-Campus Housing Office, University Housing and Residence Life, and the Public Safety Department. My name is Brandy Jericho Beach, and I am the Parent and Family Programs Coordinator for the Office of New Student and Family Programs here at Temple University. We're so glad that you decided to join us, and we would love to continue to know more about everyone who's joining us today. So if you didn't do it already, please introduce yourselves in the chat, include your name, where you're joining us from, and how your students' experience at Temple so far has been. Now, we've enclosed closed captionings for this session. To view the closed captions, please select Captions and then select Show Captions. This session is being recorded, and the slides and links will be shared after today on the Parent and Family Experience portal. Today's panelists are representatives from the Temple Family Council, Temple's Off-Campus Housing Office, the Office of University Housing and Residence Life, and Temple's Public Safety Department. We'll start by having them all share a brief introduction of themselves and before we move into the presentations. Following their presentations, we'll have a question and answer session for the remainder of our time together. So who would like to kick us off? I think Stephanie, you're up.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Geiter. I'm from Delaware. My daughter is a sophomore. She is a psychology major with a minor in criminal justice and just absolutely is thrilled to be in Philadelphia and loves Temple.
Go ahead, Stacy.
I can go next. Yeah. My name is Stacy Brack. My daughter is Caitlin. She's a freshman, undeclared liberal arts, but I think she's leaning toward history. I'm from Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm glad to be joining today.
Hi, everyone. Maria Baker. My daughter is Amara Baker, and she is a dance major, first year at Temple. We live in New York City, and she lives in the honors housing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley. I use she, her pronouns, and I currently am the Associate Director for Housing Operations in University Housing and Residential Life. So I'm responsible for room selection and all of the things you see in my housing. So happy to chat with you today. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Polson Dunmeyer, and I am the Associate Director for Student Advocacy in the Division of Student Affairs, and I oversee off-campus living. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. And I've been at Temple for about 4 years, and I love it. So excited that a lot of you have students here or thinking about coming here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Gray from the Department of Public Safety. My title is Manager for Risk Reduction and Advocacy Services, which just means that I'm super engaged in terms of students making their transition to Temple, and I'm really, really happy to be here today. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll get started with our presentations and the Q&A in just a moment, but there are a few announcements to share first. You have likely noticed that your audio and video are muted. You can see and hear us, but we can't hear or see you. So please submit your questions by using the Q&A feature. To do that, you just click the Q&A button to open the window, type your question in the text field. If you want your question to be anonymous, just check the Send Anonymously checkbox. Then click Send. Your question will be viewable to the rest of the participants. It won't be viewable, to the rest of the participants until it's been answered. And we'll share helpful links related to the questions that have been asked in the chat feature. So make sure to check the chat throughout the panel. We'll do our very best to answer as many questions as we can today. And if we're unable to answer all of the questions, we'll provide contact information at the end for you to follow up with the appropriate campus partner for your specific question. If you have any questions unrelated to Temple off-campus housing, university housing and residence life, public safety, or for the Temple Family Council, we'll do our best to assist you. Okay, next is the Temple Family Council and our presentations.
I will apologize now if you guys can hear my dog barking in the background, but I just want to introduce and talk a little bit about the Temple Family Council. So we are a very diverse group of dedicated individuals, parents, guardians of students, and they could be undergraduate or graduate students who volunteer our time and knowledge and experiences amongst ourselves as well as others, such as today through webinars. Our objectives are to contribute to shaping the parent and family experience at Temple. We want to foster communication between the university and the families, provide strategic input to the university administration regarding topics and issues of importance to parents and families, provide programmatic support, serving as volunteers as needed at events such as parent and family orientation and homecoming and family weekend. So we may have seen a lot of you at homecoming the other week, and I hope a lot of people were there and got to enjoy the football game because it was so exciting and got some swag. Also, we provide mentorship for family members of first-year students and serve as regional representatives of Temple in their area by acting as individuals to build relationships with family members. So people who might be interested in joining Temple or have are existing can meet up and just have conversations and learn a little bit more about what's going on. And just to add, there also is social media platforms that are available on Facebook and Instagram, and family council members also try to engage with posts that are out there asking questions. We may not address them immediately or directly, but we try to facilitate conversations again between the family council and the university. So we do our best. So you might see some of our names pop up from time to time trying to share communication regarding activities. Thank you.
Okay, happy to take it from here. Thank you so much to all of the panelists for being here today. So my focus today is really going to be talking about spring housing. So I know for whatever reason, students might not have been able to come in the fall. They might be deferring. They may have been studying abroad, all types of things. So we are rolling out our spring housing process very shortly. So we can advance, Emily, to the next section. Thank you so much. So applications for spring housing are available beginning Monday, November 10th. So that's in about 2-ish weeks. That's going to be available for students in My Housing, the same way that all the other applications are. From there, any student that completes their application for spring is going to be able to have access to room selection beginning on Monday, November 17th. So from there, any spaces that are available for spring will be visible for students to select on their own. Next slide. So students who haven't applied at all are required to complete the whole application. But the unique thing for spring is that we don't require any deposits for spring. We know that you probably already did it, or, you know, whatever the situation is, we know you're doing the commitment deposit to the university. So we're just removing that barrier, and all of those are going to be automatically waived for spring. So I hope that that is helpful for you. So students just need to complete the application, and the deposit part will just kind of be skipped over. They will still be able to identify their emergency contacts and do their profile and meal plan and all of that stuff. The deposit part will just be skipped. If someone already completed an application for fall and then had to defer or come back or whatever that looks like, if they already have an application started or finished, they don't need to redo it. But if you go into the application, there is going to be an image that looks like this on the quick links page at the end. They can just check that box to let us know that they're trying to come back for spring. For students who may have canceled or needed to kind of do that differently, if they can't see the spring housing application, let us know. But that's, again, how students who already did an application will notify us that they would like to be added to room selection for spring. All right, next slide. Okay, so for spaces that open up for spring, I know sometimes we get this question about, oh, will there be a spot in an apartment? Frankly, I don't know. So right now we're reviewing requests that we get from students that are graduating. They might be pursuing something at another university, unfortunately. So those are the type of situations that we're reviewing right now. So as students are released for spring, then those spaces will open up. So unfortunately, I can't predict that. For this reason, it is very unlikely that multiple spaces are going to open up in the same unit. So the traditional roommate matching that students might have been able to do over the summer won't be available for spring, because I don't want students to do that and then not actually be able to select in with a roommate. But students are able to go in on their own and be able to view all available options before selecting. So again, that's going to begin on Monday, November 17th in My Housing at 10 a.m. So when you're on the quick links page, you should be able to see an image that says room selection. And then right after that, a little icon that says spring only, which will allow students to see only the rooms available for the spring semester. And I think that might be all I had to share with you today. We can go to the next slide. Oh, okay, I'm just kidding. So spring room selection will remain open through the break and through the holiday season. So students, even if they don't decide, maybe transfer students are still waiting on some information, even if they don't decide until maybe over the holidays to come to Temple, all of the options are still going to be self-select and available through Sunday, January 4th. Even if a student decides to commit that week, it might not be visible in My Housing anymore, but just reach out to us. We will do the best that we can to add someone into an available space. Again, as time goes on, it is first come, first serve, so spots are going to be limited, but we'll do the best we can to get someone in a spot that works for them. Just wanted to do a small reminder that all new and transfer students are required to have a 12 meal per week meal plan, because most of the spaces do not have kitchen or, you know, full cooking environments. We want to make sure students are healthy and happy and able to have access to food throughout the week. So thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Hello, I will take the mic from Ashley to talk about off-campus living. So just wanted to kind of give an overview for those of you that have students that might be living on campus now, thinking about their options. Returning students can live on campus, but if they're looking for an option off campus, on the next slide, I have a little bit of information of just like the general overview. My biggest piece of advice is to take your time and do your research. There are lots of properties in the area surrounding Temple's campus. We're in the middle of Philadelphia, and we have about 10 high-rise buildings that are all student housing that are not owned or operated by Temple, but that, house almost all Temple students. And then there's tons of row home style housing. So my biggest suggestion is for students to take their time, do their research, and figure out the best fit for them, and not sign something, in September for the following year, especially if you're new and still figuring out like who you might be a good fit to live with and things like that. Lucky for us in the current state, a lot of our off-campus properties still have availability even now, so you have time. So most students do begin their search around winter for the following year. So my recommendation to students is to sometime in the spring semester, solidify your housing for next year. That way, if you're also thinking about living on campus, you can go through the returning student housing process. And if you don't get something, or there's not an option that you're super interested in, then you can go into the off-campus market, and there will be plenty of availability. So that's my biggest suggestion timeline-wise for students, is to wait a little bit, but also not to like leave Philly for the summer, totally forget about housing, come back in August and try to figure it out, because you're not gonna have as many options. We do host housing fairs on campus every year in October and April. So if you're on campus for homecoming and family weekend, we had one right out in front of the student center. So we have about 40 properties that come onto campus to talk about their options. It's a great time as a family member or for your students to ask questions directly of the property managers of places they might be interested in. And they can, of course, like tour and do all that kind of stuff individually with some properties. But our next one will be in April. So happy to share out that date if folks want to make a trip to campus to come with their student, but definitely would encourage students to come and check it out at that time. Maybe they'll be a little bit further in, know who they want to live with, and then be like pretty confident in pursuing an option or two. So ready for the next slide, Emily. So one of the primary things, you can go back to that one, that we offer is our off-campus housing website. So I actually put it like back in a comment in the chat a minute ago, but it's just offcampus.temple.edu. This is what the landing page looks like. And this is the biggest kind of resource that our team offers to students. So there is a listing map. There's a screenshot of it on the next slide that I'll get to in a second. But it basically looks kind of like Airbnb or Zillow, that it has like a map. You can filter for your price range, number of bedrooms, things like that. So we have over 1,000 properties at any given time that list on there. And that's individual properties. So one property might have, for example, the View has like 800 beds. So there are lots of properties and options on there. So lots going on. And then there is a roommate matching portal. So it's not like the on-campus housing process. This is more of like almost like a posting board where a student could say like, I'm looking for a roommate type of thing. It's not like a matching kind of survey thing like on-campus housing. So it's a little bit different, but there is an option if a student signs a lease and is looking for someone to live with them, or hasn't signed something yet and wants to find a roommate, they can post on there, and it's only viewable if students sign in. Everything else on the site is public. But for the roommate portion, just so their details aren't being shared with the whole world, that part they have to sign in to view, and they just use their Temple information to sign in there. And then we have a lot of university and local resources that are relevant to the off-campus experience. So we have a big old resources tab. And on the next slide, this is just a screenshot of what the map looks like. So the gray is, it's not perfectly the patrol zone, although I'm hoping to get that in there in the future as the gray rather than just this kind of amoeba around campus, but this is generally like the center of campus, and every property, it has like a walking distance to campus based on that radius, and all of the blue dots are different properties, and so you can see all the drop downs that students could select like all of the things that they want in a property, and only the options that meet all of those would pop up. And I wanted to briefly mention, I wanted to do more overview today, but if anybody is ever interested, feel free to reach out to our team about our Best Nest program. And I do have it circled. You can filter just for properties that are a part of this program, but this is a landlord self-certification program where they submit a bunch of documentation to our team that we review. And it's things like evidence of video cameras that cover the exterior of their property, adequate lighting. We check with public safety whether they've had noise or trash complaints in the last year. So some things like that that just kind of prove they're going above and beyond to be a safe and positive place for students to live. That is kind of a program that we run out of our office as well. But every single property that lists on our website does provide us with a rental license as well. So there are lots of websites. Obviously, our website, actually, their parent owner is apartments.com. So they're like very legit. But there are lots of other search engines. So students could find in lots of Facebook groups where any old Joe could post that they have a room to rent. And we do not vet any of those pages. This is our central page where every property submits, baseline level documentation, which is just their rental license to us. But that proves that they are doing legitimately what they need to with the city to rent a property, which is like, bare minimum of what we want of an off-campus property, but it's something that not every other site would have that kind of barrier to entry. Yeah, so to the next slide, I think I just have one or two more quick ones. So we help students with finding places off campus. We don't recommend any specific property. It is all about the student picking what's best for them, but we can help guide them through our resource to pick something that works well for them. But we also support students once they live off campus. So with the selection process and navigating that, because Philly is an overwhelming place if you've never looked for an apartment. So lots of options. But once a student is off campus, we can also support them if they are experiencing issues. So we ourselves are not legal professionals, but we do advise students on how they can go about like getting the help that they need. So we always recommend students, and would love you to reinforce this type of, process with your students to report issues and keep things in writing. So reporting to their individual property manager. There are resources through the city like 311 to submit a community concern about like the area surrounding their property, and to public safety, and Donna will talk in a minute, but any like safety concerns, things like that, they can report to public safety or Philly PD. We do have a law student organization who are advised by attorneys that offer a landlord tenant help service. And this also includes, they do lease review with students. So I refer students here all the time. They host an office hour in the Cherry Pantry in the Student Center every week. And you can also make an appointment to do a Zoom appointment outside those hours. So I recommend students to them all the time. And there are some local resources as well if there's a significant issue someone's experiencing off campus and they want legal advice. Those are all on our website as well, and I'm always happy to share them. So please reach out to our team if your student's ever experiencing something like that. And just generally, we can try to help you navigate. We might not have to answer ourselves, but we're pretty well connected with resources in the city and across campus that we could help if a student is having an issue, or find them the person that could help them. And then my last slide, just a little like plug I wanted to share. Off-campus living used to be a part of our University Housing and Residential Life team. So Ashley and I have worked very closely together over the last few years. And it is now a part of our Essential Needs Hub. So you'll probably see some more information about the hub as we grow over the next year. But just wanted to share that we are in the former bookstore space. So if you visited campus for orientation or an Experience Temple Day or something, you might have been to the bookstore. But that is where our space is now. And we are currently here in our phase 1 space, but we're expanding kind of the resources that we offer to meet students' essential needs. So we're really focused on in the off-campus living space trying to find some affordable housing options for students and connecting students with resources that might not be having a stable place to live. But we are kind of going to be the hub and the central place that you can ask questions about that. So just wanted to share that we're kind of we've shifted around a little bit. So if you were familiar at all, both with this physical space or with off-campus living in the past, we have moved around a little bit, but you can still reach us in all the same ways that I know are at the end of this presentation.
So first and foremost, I want to welcome you on behalf of everybody at Public Safety. You probably, in terms of your student coming for orientation, became quite familiar with a lot of what we do. And so today I really want to focus on what's new and different. And so we'll go to the next slide. So, one of the things that I do hope is that your student has made a successful transition. But here's the thing, I want to remind you that we're here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you never have to worry about who do you contact and what your needs are. We are here. And one of the reasons why I picked the Communication Center is because we've had a recent upgrade. And so it made it more comfortable for our staff, as well as we've upgraded some of our technology. So it's all about service. So we can go to the next one. So a lot of what happens is going to happen in our patrol area. So I think of it as being in the zone. And in that zone, it's going to mean a lot of things. It's where our 5 locations are, our Code Blue emergency phones. Our staff are diligently working there. We have 68 Code Blue emergency phones. So there's a lot that's happening there. And quite honestly, the difference between looking at early August and looking at today is that it is so filled with students wherever you go. So it's nice to be part of a vibrant, thriving community. I do want to emphasize, we can go to the next slide, that we talked a lot at orientation about our safety app, TU Safe. And so I am happy to report that since May, we have had 2,263 new users that opened accounts. And so quite honestly, one of the things that I will often say to people is technology is great, but are people using it? So we now have this reassurance that our new students have embraced this and are using this for all the services that are available, like the walking escort and shuttle service and everything else that's happening at Temple to keep them safe. We can go to the next slide. In terms of the walking escort program, yeah, I wanted some research. And it's interesting because one of the things that I have to tell you that I said during orientation is that the service is really predicated on weather. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how you look at it, we've had great weather. So, and on one hand, it looks like our ridership is down, but on the other hand, what I can tell you is that the prime hours for use are after 3 p.m. and before 7 a.m. We know that as it gets darker earlier, that ridership is going to pick right back up in terms of the shuttle service, but our walking escort is always available 24 hours a day, and it's good to know that people are utilizing it. We can go next. So I do want to say in terms of flight, we're still operating good numbers, and people are definitely utilizing it to get around safely. And I think one of the things that I really think that sets us apart of many other institutions is that we have this tremendous service that's available to get students onto campus and then back to their homes safely and conveniently. We can go next. So a lot of parents are always asking about alerts, and we understand that. And what I can tell you is that, quite honestly, I was looking at, how many alerts were sent for October, and there were, I don't want to, I'm knocking wood because I don't want to jinx us in any way, but we've had less issues and less alerts going out. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have to be proactive. So quite honestly, on the 17th, we actually had our testing of our siren just to make sure, because you don't want to be in an emergency situation and students question whether things are operating and operating well. So we're mindful of that. Also, I want to emphasize that our emergency management team is doing monthly workshops so that students and staff are acquainted with what needs to happen in terms of an emergency. So we know that everybody can rest assured once we know that we're doing the things that we need to do to keep everybody safe. Next slide, please. So quite honestly, yes, we do need to do our annual security report. It is a requirement, a federal requirement. We got ours done and published in compliance with the deadline, but I really do want you to take the opportunity to peruse it. It's available on our website. One of the things that I can say, it's like almost 90 pages, which is light reading for our students, right? If you review it, then it sort of reinforces for them, because there's a lot of policies and procedures in there that are really critical for students to know what to do and how to navigate college life. So we really, really would appreciate your assistance with that. I want to talk a little bit about safety considerations, because you're always going to hear me sort of focusing on that. How do we create this team that works to keep everybody safe? Of course, I have my campus partners, but you need to know that you are an important dynamic in terms of student safety and campus safety. So again, please reinforce for students to report incidents immediately. That's something that keeps all of us safe. You know, we want to minimize the risks that students take and avoid some unsafe conditions. To be honest, we're not naive. We do know that students are going to go out and try to have a good time. We want them to have a good time, but having a good time doesn't necessarily equate to a trip to the hospital or something more serious in terms of a health concern. So we do want people to be mindful of that. You know, people do need to be mindful of what they eat and drink. Is a college environment. We also want them to adhere to policies and protocols and precautions. Quite honestly, there's a reason why we have such stringent policies in terms of who can come into the residence halls and when. And that is to keep everybody safe. And we need to continue to sort of focus on that. Want you to know that our team is trained in dealing with mental health situations, and that we will continue to reinforce that. And also, in addition to our medical amnesty policy, we also are really focused on students getting in touch with us as soon as possible to report any concerns about their friends or roommates or any of that, so that we can help. We do know that, you're in this with us, and that our goal is to develop skills so that students navigate independence and also can deal with conflict effectively. Um, it's not just about living in a residence hall. It's kind of along the lines of you're working in groups, and you're going to, at some point in time, have your career where you're working with people. And so everything might not always be smooth sailing, but how do you learn the skills and develop what you need, those insights, to be successful? So we really, truly appreciate you. I do want to emphasize just a few things that have happened around Temple to focus on the safety of everyone. Quite honestly, one of the concerns that we've had is pedestrian safety. And I want you to know that the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and that warnings have been issued, so that we are really working hard. Broad Street is a major thoroughfare for the city, and students need to be able to safely get across. Everybody does. So that's one thing to be mindful of. But and we're constantly out there working with our community and working with our campus partners to remind students about ways to be safe and precautions to take. So in advance, I thank you.
Okay, it's time now for our panelists to answer your questions. So please make sure you post any questions that you have in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Okay, our first question is, their student wants to live in a house off campus that's approximately a half mile away from campus. Is it safe to move that far off campus? And does the patrol zone, Donna, kind of encompass around a half mile away from campus? Oh, Donna, I can't hear you. You might need to unmute. Sorry.
So the patrol zone is not likely to encompass that area. I can give you the specifics of our patrol area, or you can follow up with me directly. However, what I do want to emphasize is that we work with Philadelphia Police and we also work with SEPTA Police. So I would say, is it safe to move somewhere? Yes. Everyone should do their research regarding neighborhoods and things along those lines, just to have a, sense of what's what. But a lot of our students will walk to and from campus and do that with, little ease. So feel free to follow up with me directly about a specific address, and I can help you to navigate that.
And just as a reminder, we'll have contact information up on our screen at the end. So that's how you'll be able to get in touch with any of our panelists. So our next question is that this parent said that they had heard that for sophomores and older should start seeking off-campus housing now and not wait too long. Is there any guidance on when the process for looking for off-campus housing should start? Because they have heard some mixed things about when rental agreements begin.
So they begin immediately. For off-campus properties, they start getting students to re-sign right away, and like advertising, they're always looking for students to make a decision early. But I will stick to my advice and say, don't do it that early. There are some benefits, like sometimes they'll offer deals, like they'll waive a deposit or waive first month's rent. If someone knows exactly where they want to live, they can absolutely sign super early. And a lot of the large properties in the area are like students are starting to re-sign there. But in the current state of our market and everything, they will not be full. Even like, there will be good room types and things like that all through spring and stuff. So I think a lot of the pressure comes from the off-campus properties who want like students to start signing pretty early. But from our perspective and trying to have students make the best decision for them, we would not recommend going that early, unless you know exactly what you want, exactly who you want to live with. There's no harm in taking your time. We're lucky in that fact. I know there are a lot of campuses at, different schools and stuff that housing fills up like this, on and off campus. But for our off campus market, we do have a little bit of, the students kind of have the power and have a little bit more time. They might not love me saying that, but I'm being honest with you.
And if I could just add to that, my daughter is a current sophomore, so she's living off campus. She started in the spring of this year, so like February, she started looking, and there was still a really, really nice selection. And as Leah said, there's still availability, even at the place she's currently at. Now for next year, being a junior, she's now identified, she's gonna have more classes in her college, and so she might want to live a little bit closer. She has started looking now, but to Leah's point, she's not rushing through it. She wants to make sure she makes the right decision. So so I think you just kind of got to figure out what works for you.
Great, thank you. So this is for you, Ashley. We have quite a few folks asking if you could please touch again on the important dates that you mentioned earlier. But also, they want to know specifically about deposits also. If they decide to, after they've already deposited for on-campus housing, if they decide instead to move off campus, if they can receive that deposit back. So if you could list the deadline dates again, and then that deposit question.
Sure. So the deadlines for spring. So again, this was focused on spring. I did not prepare things for fall for this, so I can answer some general questions, but that has not been finalized or advertised yet. So for spring, the applications for spring will open in My Housing on November 10th. Room selection for spring will begin on November 17th. The application for next year will open in spring, but just to clarify, there are no deposits for spring for housing. So I did cover that in my section, but there are no deposits for spring. We're not requiring that of students, but students who would like to live on campus for next year, there would still be a deposit for next year's application, but not for spring. So hopefully that covers that.
Thank you.
And if I could just add to that, sorry, because my daughter's a sophomore, we've been through a little bit. So she went through that last year. She wasn't sure if she was going to be on campus or off campus. So she did put the deposit for the fall immediately, which allowed her to get a very early time slot to select. And there were quite a few rooms or beds available, and she was able to get one. She did then decide to go off campus and went through the cancellation process and did get her refund back. So everybody was really helpful and supportive. The biggest thing is if there isn't any rooms available, keep looking. I think Ashley mentioned that earlier, especially talking about spring. Same thing applies for the fall. Like, just keep looking, because I know people get a little bit concerned that there might not be availability.
Great, thank you. How, Leah, do you advertise off-campus housing properties on the website? Is there an easy way for folks to be able to see that information?
Yes. So the best way to do it is on the listing map I showed a little screenshot of, but that is all of the properties. So there are some in other parts of the city too. So we use the same partner on our website that Drexel and Penn and most of the other Philly schools use. So there are even some properties in like Center City or University City if someone wanted to live further away, which, you know, might not be for a Temple student, but if they wanted to, there are options on there too, but they can zoom just to like the Temple area, or if there's another specific neighborhood they're interested in. But that is the best way. There's not like a list on the website, but there's like the map, and you can, on the side, all the properties within the radius you're looking at come up, and you can look at each individual listing. And they like submit that listing through our site, that so it has all of the rate information. There's all sorts of stuff about walkability, and other like amenities, whether utilities are included. They just instituted a new like fee transparency section so that like any other fees are included. So that's definitely the best way to go about it. And we review properties that are, we've had like 100 resubmit listings over the last month or so. So yeah, we are constantly like keeping that up to date. And when rental licenses expire, they have to re-upload them. So it's kind of always changing. That's why we don't keep a static list anywhere, because the map is going to have everybody who is actively on the site, which means they're like available, accepting applications or inquiries either for this year and or next leasing year.
Okay, thank you. We have a question about whether it's required for first-year students to live on campus. And then another question is kind of tied to that. If they are from out of state, are out-of-state students guaranteed on-campus housing?
Right. So are we talking about next fall? I'm assuming this is like next year questions. Okay. So there is not currently a live-on requirement for first-year students, but that could be coming. The university has been toying around with that for a long time, of whether that is something they're going to consider or not consider. So my understanding for right now is no. And moving into our next application cycle, it will not be mandatory for first-year students to live on campus. And can you remind me the second part of the question, Brandy?
They were wondering if on-campus housing is guaranteed for out-of-state students.
No, so on-campus housing is guaranteed for students who submit their application by May 1st. So for the next cycle, new and incoming students coming in would need to have everything completed by May 1st in order to have that guarantee. For returning students, there's a limited amount of beds, so there is not a guarantee for returning students.
Okay, this question is both for you, Leah, and Ashley. They said their students considering doing study abroad next year for just one semester, and they were wondering how that is coordinated with housing, both for off-campus and on-campus, if they were to be abroad.
I can go first to give you a breath, Ashley. So for off-campus housing, maybe I should have let Ashley go first, because the on-campus housing process is a little different, but off-campus housing, they have you sign a full year lease, and that is a legally binding document. They don't let you out of it to study abroad. pretty much ever. So you could post it to like as a sublet, and almost most of the properties that are on our site and that we know of in the area, they allow students to sublet or relet their units. It's just like a legal difference in between what they are. But we on our website, there's the ability to post a sublet for other students to see. So that's how most students navigate studying abroad if they have an off-campus lease. And then I'll let Ashley speak to the on-campus portion because it's a little bit different since they, are more catered to the university and what students do here than maybe the off-campus market.
Sure. So I think because on-campus housing is affiliated with the university, we're able to verify if a student is studying abroad. So if a student decides to study abroad, they could submit a cancellation after, like when they initially sign up for housing, it is going to default to be the whole year. When a student knows for sure in October-ish that they're definitely going to do that, they can submit a cancellation and indicate that it's for spring. And there's an option to say, I'm planning to study abroad. Once a student actually registered for abroad classes, it will show up in their spring registration saying, oh, they're going to be in Japan or Rome or wherever they're going. So that will show up in their registration. So once that's verified, then they would be eligible for release from housing for the spring semester. So students can't just like decide to live off campus for the spring, like it is still a full year commitment. But if they are doing something academic with the university, then yes, we would be able to review that and confirm.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions about registering for on-campus housing. Some folks have asked if they're going to be a returning student, do they need to register again to live in the exact same place? They're wondering, if for the returning student, is it up to them to register, but then also if it is, can they specifically ask for to live in the same exact spot as they've been living in?
Yeah, so our campus housing is divided up by class year. So all new students live together and then returning students live together. So new students who are on campus now and want to return for next year, no, they would not be able to just stay in the same spot because the options for returners are different. So those spaces will be offered to the incoming class. So yes, it is on the students to submit their application and complete room selection and all of that. Once the spring application opens, there will be a period where students are able to do roommate matching and kind of create those groups and go through room selection in February. So I think the application will open in January, and then room selection for returners will happen in February in a similar timeline as last year. So yeah, there is an opportunity for students to do that, but unfortunately they can't stay in the same space as those options change for returners.
Great, thank you. So we have someone asking if all of the Best Nest properties are also located in the patrol area.
That is a great question. And yes, they are. That is one of the conditions of any property participating in the program. They have to be listed on our off-campus website, which means they provide us their rental license before doing anything, and they have to be within the patrol zone. So those are like prerequisites. And then all the other documentation is what they submit on top of those two things.
Great, thank you. So we have a question. Break is coming up soon. I know that's on a lot of folks' minds. It'll be for some the first time that they're going back home to visit. So we have a question about for breaks, if they are an international student or from out of state, do they have the option to stay in their residence hall during break? But also, if they choose to go home over break, are they allowed to leave all of their belongings behind?
Yes, so fall break and spring break, students can register with no problem at no charge. Students are not required to move out over winter break. I saw that comment in a couple places. If a student is currently on campus and they've signed up for housing for the whole year, that is one unique thing. I know at some other schools, they do require students to like leave completely, take their stuff, like do all of that. We don't require that, and students are able to access their housing for the full term of their contract. Fall and spring break, there is no charge. Students just need to sign up so we know that they're planning to stay. Winter break, there is a fee associated with that, and there is an approval process. But if a student has has a current spring assignment, they are registered for spring classes, like we know they're coming back, they are eligible to be able to apply for that. There is a fee for winter break, but not for the other ones, and students are not required to move out for any of the breaks with the exception of summer.
Great, thank you. This is a question about roommates. Are they allowed to select and choose who specifically they want to room with for returning students?
For spring semester, no, roommate matching won't be available because the spots are going to be limited. And it's unlikely that multiple spaces are going to open up within the same unit. For next year, yes, roommate matching will be available after the application opens.
Great, thank you. I have another question. I believe you touched on this earlier about notifying on-campus housing if they're going to be moving off-site about the time frame that they have to do that by.
So it should be in October or around class registration. So class registration for spring begins on Monday. And I know that we are actively reviewing any type of cancellation request at that time.
Great, thank you. Donna, this is a question for you for students who are living off campus. I know you touched on this a little bit, but can you talk a bit about the walking escort program for students who do end up living off campus?
Okay. So the walking escort program is within our patrol boundaries. And so our patrol boundary is from 18th Street to 9th Street. And then from Susquehanna down to Girard or Jefferson. So anywhere within that area, our walking escorts will accompany students. So sometimes if students are living in Center City or whatever, they may use the walking escort to get to the subway, or they may use it to get to the regional rail. We do offer that as a service. In addition, flight will only go within our patrol boundary, and that's why it's sort of like so many things are operating within our particular zone and not beyond that. But it's a very, safe journey. And one of the things that I would sort of say that probably has enhanced things is that Broad Street has become increasingly well lit over the last couple of years. And I think that that always helps. And if you have a student that has a particular concern about what's a safe route, we can provide that information to them so that they're easily getting back and forth.
Thank you. So this is a question about whether off-campus rental properties in the Best Nest program, do they only rent to Temple students, or is there a mix of non-Temple tenants and Temple students in those properties?
Specifically for Best Nest properties or for any off-campus property, like on the...
They don't specify in the question.
Okay, gotcha. So the majority, we have, I mentioned kind of at the beginning, we have about 10 really big apartment complexes that are like high-rise buildings kind of around campus that have anywhere from 200 to 800 or 900 beds in them. And they primarily advertise to Temple students, and I would say probably 95% of their residents are Temple students, but they do make exceptions. Like there are some people who have a non-student sibling or a like other chosen roommate that they kind of bring in with them. And so there are non-students living amongst those, since it's not university owned or operated. They are operated independently by these private companies. They do have, the ability to do that because being a student isn't a prerequisite for signing a lease with them, but the large majority of students living in all of those buildings or residents are students. And then row home wise, those are, you pick the people that you live with and like sign a lease with most of the time. So there might be multiple units in a building, and possibly by unit, there might be some non-student community members that are living in a different unit. So that is a little bit more like free and open, since that's like more in the community than a high-rise building is. I hope that answers the question. Okay.
So sticking with you, Leah, are students allowed to use financial aid to pay for off-campus rent?
This is one of my most commonly asked questions. So yes, but while on-campus housing, the fees are applied to a student's Temple account. So the aid would like go directly toward tuition, fees, and housing if you live on campus. For off-campus housing, you're signing a lease directly with a landlord. So in your FAFSA, when you fill it out, you should still estimate your housing costs. So even if your student hasn't chosen by the FAFSA deadline, which a lot of students won't, you can look on our website and see an estimated amount that would be like monthly rent at a place that's kind of interesting to them. And you can use that as your estimate. And then as long as you include that in FAFSA, you would hopefully, if all goes well, get approved for the loan amount that would also cover that. And then your whole aid package would be applied to your Temple account. And first, it covers everything that's on your Temple account. So if there are any like overdue things and tuition fees and other student activity fees, all of that gets covered first. And then everything left over comes back to the student in a refund check. And then students can use that to pay for their housing. So it's like a roundabout way of answering the question, but hopefully explained it okay. But this is a super common question that we get. But as long as you fill out FAFSA and identify an estimated amount that you think you would pay, it should be part of your package that you'll get as a refund check. But then the student has to budget to use it for off-campus housing and not, spend it on other things. So if a student went and spent their whole refund check on other things, then it wouldn't be there to help them pay for housing. So they just have to kind of budget a little bit more than the on-campus housing process allows them to, since that goes directly to the housing costs.
Okay, and sticking with you, Leah, again, I'm so sorry. But do you help students with their leases, with signing them and knowing how to navigate them? And then if they have to break a lease, do you also assist them with that?
So with like signing leases, that's what our law students that do the landlord tenant help service, they do lease review with students. So we kind of lead that to them. We've seen a lot of leases. So if there are like kind of general questions, we're happy to answer some. But if a student wants someone to like look through, make sure nothing looks funky, that's what the landlord tenant help service is for. And they've been a really awesome resource for students. So just want to highlight that again. And if a student needs to break their lease, it is a legally binding document between them and the landlord. If there is like a severe extenuating circumstance, sometimes we can connect. A lot of times what we do is we connect a student with a property manager if they're like not being responsive or if they just want to like talk to a human to work it out. But we're really like the facilitator of them having this conversation with the other person in the legally binding agreement. So if there's an extenuating circumstance that's kind of severe, we might be able to assist, but we can't like advocate on a student's behalf to break a lease since it is a legal document.
Thank you so much. Okay, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. That went very quickly. But thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. You'll see their emails and contact information here on the screen. They are all more than willing to answer any follow-up questions. In addition, we will be posting a recording of this session along with the helpful links in the Parent Family Experience portal shortly for your reference. So please check back there shortly. And then lastly, we'd like for you to save the date for a new feature called Owl Talk Family Connection Hour, brought to you from the Office of New Student and Family Programs, where the Temple Family Council will be online for an hour each month to chat and talk with you about the Temple family experience. This is an informal conversation, so we hope you can join us for our first one on Wednesday, November 5th from 6 to 7 p.m. And of course, our webinar series, like today, will be continuing monthly with different campus partners featured each month. Registration information will be sent shortly in the Parent and Family Experience portal for both the Owl Talk and the webinar, so stay tuned for all of that information. Again, thank you to our panelists for joining us today and sharing their wisdom with us all. And thank you to our participants for joining us and asking your questions. We hope that you and your students have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for everyone for joining us. See you next time.